can chuck and scores!
Shabbat curled and drives and scores!
And the Senators win it.
By the partner, Ken Hamilton scores! Drake Hamilton, oh, and got it. Green, Green again, scores!
All right, everybody, we are joined here with 2021 7th round selection by your Ottawa Senators, defenseman Chandler Romeo. Chandler, thank you so much for joining Sens Talk today.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure. A couple weeks ago, we had Sens prospect Igor Sokolov, Craig Button. We've been having a lot of great guests, and we're glad to have you on here, Chandler. So, you know, you were drafted by the Hamilton Bulldogs in 2019, of course, of the OHL. But last year, COVID ruined the season. There was no season for the OHL. What is that like for a player? What's that whole experience like? Because obviously, you know, playing hockey for most of your life, you haven't had a whole year off like that, especially during a pandemic. So what was that whole experience like?
I think mentally it was just tough. At the beginning, they announced that December 1st start date, right? And that gave a little bit of hope. And I think we were going to get like 60 games there. So that would have been enough, right? So I was looking forward to that. And then as time just kind of kept moving on, they kept delaying and postponing the season. To eventually the point where they canceled it, right? But I think for sure with the motivation for me was the fact that they kept setting that new date. And it just gave me something to train for. And I think like a lot of guys, we were just motivated and eager to get on the ice. But definitely a frustrating year for a lot of people.
Now, obviously coming out of junior B, you know, getting drafted into the OHL, you're probably fired up. So like you just said, you know, you were doing some training during that offseason. Did the Hamilton Bulldogs, you know, obviously OHL is a step up from, like a junior league. So did the OHL Hamilton Bulldogs give you like a training program for that year? Like what was keeping you busy during that lengthy offseason?
Yeah, so I live in Cambridge, so I'm somewhat close to Hamilton. It takes me about 45 minutes to get to the rink. So
perfect.
Our coaches there were having skates just kind of under the table, but for anybody that was local enough to take a drive to the rink, and then some other local OHL guys. So I was skating there like 3 times a week up until I think the January when the other Ontario lockdown came into play. And then I was just finding ice almost anywhere I could. And my trainer actually that I work out with in the off season, Justin Brooks, he's my Hamilton Bulldogs strength coach too. So he was able to work with me through Zoom and just in my basement doing workouts and stuff like that. So it was pretty easy for me to stay training, but I know most guys didn't have it that easy. So,
you know, I did see some OHL players go overseas to Europe, and now that's great that you firstly to have a good connection like that with the Bulldogs organization with training. That's great. But, you know, we saw a lot of people from the OHL, especially draft eligible players like yourself, go overseas to Europe or, you know, to play in Europe and play in their, minor leagues or, you know, their junior leagues. So did you ever have a thought about potentially going overseas to Europe to get some season in before the NHL draft?
Yeah, I did. I thought about it, especially around that Christmas time where things weren't looking good with COVID here. But in talks with my agent and my GM in Hamilton and with my family, we just the cons kind of outweighed the pros in terms of that, and decided to stay. But funny enough, I actually in end of February I went up to Ottawa and got some time with the Ottawa Junior Senators up there. They were running these like scrimmage games. That was pretty good. I was up there for 5 weeks, got into 4 games. So that gave me a little bit of something, but no, just didn't really want to make the trip over to Europe. I didn't think it would benefit me that much, especially with I wouldn't be playing in a top league over there, so I'm not sure if it would be worth it.
Did you know anyone that went overseas to continue their career or get some hockey in before the draft?
Yeah, quite a few of my buddies actually went over. Cool experience for them,
yeah.
Seemed. But I think it really depended on what league you were going to, and the history, like in your past season, was going to dictate what league you're going to get into. And coming out of junior B, I wasn't going to be able to get into a top league, so it just wasn't worth it for me.
Well, speaking about junior B, I was reading an article in preparation for this interview, and it mentioned how not many players have been drafted out of junior B. So speaking of the draft and speaking of about how incredible the fact is that you got drafted, obviously deservingly, but like I said, junior B missing a year because of OHL, it's a great feat. It says a lot about you yourself. So what is your draft story? You know, everyone has a draft story, Chandler. You know, some people are just fishing and then suddenly they get a call. Some people are watching NHL Network and they see their name pop up on the screen. Chandler, where were you when the Senators selected you in the 7th round this year?
I was in my living room watching with my parents. We were up at the cottage prior to that, and then I said, you know what, like I want to go home and
Yeah.
be in front of my nice bigger TV and be able to watch with my family. I had a good feeling that I was going to be picked, but I wasn't for sure. But yeah, I was just sitting around with my parents. My brother had stayed up at the cottage, and just an exciting moment for sure. It was a nervous day for everybody, but just a real sigh of relief once my name got called.
And that draft, that second round, that was all day. So you were sitting there for
Yeah.
like the second round. It took like 3 hours, I believe. Like it was a very, very slow pace. So good on you for sticking through. Definitely at the end of the day, it was worth it because you got drafted into the National Hockey League. Now speaking, go ahead. Yeah.
I think I looked at like 5:30, and the draft started at 11. The second round.
God, man.
I was coach potato for the day.
Buddy was drinking 5-hour energy drinks throughout the day to keep him alive. Man, that is, you know what? At the end of the day, I can't relate because I don't think I'm ever gonna get drafted into the National Hockey League. But I think if I was about to get drafted into the National Hockey League, that would fire me up enough to stay awake a little bit extra. Now,
Exactly.
you know, like we mentioned a couple of times, you didn't play last year, unfortunately, because of COVID, like many other players. So, you know, can you describe your style of game for Sens fans that are watching this right now? What should we expect out of you when you're out there on the ice?
Yeah, so I'm a big rangy defenseman, really good in my own zone. I'd say I'm a two-way defenseman, but I'm definitely stronger in my own zone, especially given my size. I make a great first pass, and I take pride in being the hardest player to play against for the other team.
Well, that fits the bill exactly what the Ottawa Senators like. You know, obviously, as you know, as a Sens pick, you know, Brady Tkachuk, Tyler Boucher, drafted in the first round this year. DJ Smith, his style is really rough and tough, and obviously you fit in perfectly. So, you know, obviously you've had the opportunity, especially being from Ontario, to see some Senator games. What do you like with the Senators style right now? You know, obviously it clearly fits your type of play too. But what do you like about that type of hockey, especially from a player's perspective?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, just watching them, and to be honest with you, I haven't watched them a ton. I watch more Leaf games normally, but
all right, we'll forgive you.
now.
We'll forgive you for that. Don't worry, we'll forgive you.
But you know, it looks like they have so many young, skilled players, and it looks like they're really starting to mix in those bigger and more physical players. So I think it's just going to be such a great mix, like moving forward. And yeah, I just kind of look forward to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years for sure. But I think it's really promising.
Now, you mentioned in an article that a dozen teams inquired about you before the draft, with the Senators actually reaching out to you twice. What were those conversations like with those National Hockey League teams pre-draft? Can you give us sort of a behind-the-scenes look of what a pre-draft interview is like for a prospect?
Yeah, so I think this year was different than most years. I wouldn't know, but I would assume. But they range from 30 to an hour, and kind of just getting to know you. A lot of it is not even like hockey questions. Some of it is just situational questions away from the rink, what you like to do in spare time. And then they get into some hockey questions too. And just they want to know what kind of person you are. That's the vibe that I was getting from them. And some of them are different than others. Some are a little bit more easygoing, and some are drilling the questions at you. But yeah, cool experience for me.
You know, we've heard on many like Spin and Chicklets, for example, we've seen clips about some interesting draft interviews. Like I believe it was Brian Burke discussing the Nail Yakupov interview where he said that Yakupov was the worst interview he's ever had. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes in those interviews that fans don't know. So I'm not going to ask you to reveal too much because it's supposed to remain that way. But I do want to ask, was there any type of question that really stuck out to you during that whole process?
No, nothing like too specific. A couple of my buddies got some weird ones, but no, nothing too serious for me. It was just kind of basic stuff that you would assume, and I was pretty prepped for it.
So, what were those conversations like with Ottawa? You know, I obviously like I said, I'm not an NHL prospect, so I can't relate. But I think it's definitely out of the blue to see a team reach out twice before a draft, not even post draft, before a draft to reach out to you twice. What was that like, and what were they trying to talk to you about? The Sens organization. Yeah,
my most recent call with Ottawa was with there's four scouts, maybe three on the call. And I felt really good after that. I thought that we all kind of connected, and all the scouts were asking questions too. And it was just a comfortable environment with them. And that's what gave me a really good feeling after. And then my agent had told me a couple weeks after that, he said that Ottawa did really like your interview and they liked your playing style. So I had a good feeling with Ottawa going into the draft. There's a few teams that I felt liked me definitely more than others, but Ottawa was definitely up there in top 2, top 3.
Have you had an opportunity to speak to Pierre Dorion, DJ Smith, Mr. Melnick potentially? Have you had an opportunity to speak to any of them?
Yep, I spoke to Pierre Dorion on the day after the draft, the next morning. He was just kind of more just an introduction. Said he's excited to meet me, and likewise for me. And I guess I'll meet him at camp. I spoke to Sean Donovan, player development, and Rob. I want to say his last name is Moland. He is a strength coach, and he's the one that actually invited me up. I'm going tomorrow morning up to Ottawa. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes because I do have a question about that visit. But going into your first OHL season next year, obviously we mentioned multiple times now you didn't play last year in the OHL. So obviously Hamilton wants you to do stuff during the offseason, and obviously you yourself need to improve on some stuff before the season even begins. So during this last year, what have you been doing to prepare for your first OHL season, and what are you primarily working on just to develop your game as a whole?
Yeah, well, over this last year, it gave me a lot of time to put on some size and really fill out. I only stopped growing probably last year, so it gave me a good chance to put on a good 20, 25 pounds and kind of fill out my frame. And I think the biggest thing for me next year is just going to be trying to step into the league and be comfortable right off the bat. I don't want to waste any time getting my feet wet. I just want to get in there and start playing my best hockey as soon as possible, right? Yeah. But nothing too specific that I'm working on this off season. Skating, stick handling, just kind of the usuals. I don't tend to pinpoint things unless there's something that needs to be worked on specifically. But I think just my overall game has gotten a lot better in the last year, and I look forward to showing that when I return to Hamilton.
Now, in Hamilton, obviously they're going to have fans back in the stands, as we've seen the CFL have fans in the stands. I don't see why the OHL won't have fans in the stands in Ontario. So, how is that? How excited are you to be you're going from junior B to the OHL, where in Hamilton, they have a very large arena, as you obviously know. They have a huge arena there. So what's that going to be like to play in front of crowds of maybe tens of thousands of people eventually during that year? What's that going to be like?
It's going to be really nice, to be honest with you. It feels like, it has been probably almost 2 years since I was in a building with that many people. So I'm eager to feel the energy from the crowd and just be able to play in front of a large crowd again. That'll be really nice and special. And being local here, I have a lot of family that's going to come out and watch, and I'm lucky enough to have them supporting me. So that'll be nice to have them there.
And you're definitely one of those rare prospects in which you never really played in front of an empty crowd, I would assume, and if not, please correct me. But a lot of players mention how when you don't play in front of fans, obviously that takes away a bit of the juice. The fans have such a big impact when it comes to momentum and creating energy and shifting. Just creating that momentum to obviously come back if you're down in the game or whatever. So the loss of fans obviously had a huge impact on teams. Just look what happened in the bubble last year with the Stanley Cup. So many weird, just crazy momentum shifts. It's like junior hockey, but it was in the NHL. So the impact on fans cannot be understated enough. Now, speaking of fans, Ottawa fans for a while, many, many years now, have had a passion to have the 2D jersey brought back here in Ottawa. Now, last year, that passion became a reality as the Senators brought back that 2D jersey. I personally think some of the cleanest jerseys in the National Hockey League. Chandler, you mentioned that you watched a lot of Leaf videos, Leaf games growing up. Yep. I don't think you can really be a Leaf fan anymore. I think you may have to cross over to the better side here in Ottawa. But what do you think
so.
of 2D jerseys, and how fired up are you to put on one of the cleanest jerseys in the National Hockey League?
I think they're nice. I think they're really rich looking. I like the dark too. I don't know. It's just nice with the gold too. I really like it. Haven't got a draft jersey yet. I'm hoping to get one somewhat soon. It's difficult right now because of COVID and haven't really seen anybody. But it'll be an honor for me to put on the shirt for the first time.
Well, hopefully when you go into Ottawa tomorrow, they'll give you a nice sweater to wear. Now, I actually want to speak up on that before we finish the interview, because some teams around the National Hockey League have announced summer development camps, and the Senators, you mentioned that you're going up tomorrow, but have the Sens mentioned to you anything about a potential Senators development summer camp in the near future?
Yeah, when I've spoken to people from the Senators, I don't think there's going to be anything in the month of August. I think there's supposed to be a rookie camp. Don't quote me on that, but before main camp, so roughly probably second week of September. But I don't think any of that is confirmed yet. I haven't received any dates, so I can't. I can't promise that.
Well, here's hoping, because you've been off the ice for too long. It's time to get you back on there. I'm sure you're itching to get back out there. But it's a Saturday night. It's a Saturday night, Chandler. So I'm going to let you go. But I do appreciate you joining the show. It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot about you today. Obviously, without you playing an OHL season last year, and obviously playing Junior B, there's not as much coverage as on you as many other prospects, because they got to play in the OHL. So I really do appreciate you joining the show here. And do you have a message to any Sens fans watching this before we wrap it up? Because like I said, many Sens fans are starting to really learn about you for the first time right now.
Not really anything specific, just that I'm one of those guys that's super eager. I want to play hockey for a living, and I want to play for the Senators. So over these next few years for me, that's my number one priority, and I'm going to do whatever I can, I guess, to make it happen. So.
Well, Chandler, we look forward to watching your journey, and hopefully in the near future, we'll see you here in Ottawa wearing that beautiful 2D on your chest. Chandler, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll have to have you on again soon. Thank you, Chandler, so much.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.